That's perfect. Okay, sorry about that. The power went out here in the Bay Area, so I'm gonna have to do the rest of this by phone light, but that's okay because I can still see, and I brought some candles to help me. So now I'm looking at problem 3, which is the candle problem. So I was just reading this when the power went out, so I've already read it. This one's a little bit confusing to me because I'm not, this is kind of ironic, but I myself am not an expert on candle wax, so I'm not really sure. Is it meant to be the case that it's adhesive to the wall, like you can melt the candle to be attached to the wall? Because if that's not the case, right, a thumbtack is probably not long enough to go through the candle. So that's a little bit interesting to me. I don't actually believe that the wax would able to really melt on the wall. I don't think that would work as an adhesive. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe if it's melting, it can kind of work as a kind of glue, potentially. But I'm just not sure. The only other thing I could think of is you do have the thumbtacks, right? So if you were able to, it'd be kind of odd, but if you attach the candle kind of standing up, right, on maybe the table, and then all you would need is a thumbtack, or maybe more than one if you want to make it more secure, excuse me, on the actual string. So that would, I think, more or less keep it fixed against the wall. Okay, but the issue with that would be then the candle would drip on the table. So this is a little bit interesting to me because I'm looking at the wording on the problem. It also says above the table. So my first instinct when I read this was to try to kind of get around this by putting the candle under the table. But if we follow the problem literally, we're not allowed to do that. So I guess the only thing that I would say here is why don't we just put, and actually it can't drip on the table, right? We have two items that are not the table. So you can actually put the pack of matches, excuse me. I don't see why you couldn't put that under the candle. That way, there's no way wax could get on the table because the matches were underneath it. I also think this would be a little strange because there'd still be a lot of tacks in the box, but you could just kind of nestle, I guess, the candle in amongst the tacks, and then the candle would melt on the tacks and in the tack box. So that'll be my two solutions here. I'll just pick one. So I think I'll have it just melt over the matches. That's my first idea. So I will fix the candle into place against the wall. I think honestly, if you're standing it up, one thumbtack would actually be sufficient. Using a thumbtack, and I will wedge the pack of matches under the candle. I still don't quite get how this is going to work because you would never be able to burn that candle. So maybe this isn't the solution, but I did my best. Okay, so that's number 3. So number 4 is C problem 7 in the group blah blah blah, section 3.8. This problem can be used by students as an individual activity if the teacher does not intend it to be a group activity. So let's see if we can find this. So here's 3.8. So what's the thing called? It's called the case of the lead masks. Okay, so, here it is. So, okay, I will read this quietly because there's a lot of text. There's a chart. Detectives. Okay, so this is like a detective case. Interesting. Here we go. So I'm going to read this to myself, and then at the end, I will summarize it out loud. Okay, so this is very interesting. So I guess we're supposed to find out who committed this potentially murder, right? So for me, I think it's better to kind of think about a hierarchy of evidence, right? Or a hierarchy of things that are important, so to speak, right? Because there's a lot of details in here. And a lot of this, I think, having watched a lot of TV in my life, are going to be what we call like circumstantial evidence. It's not really going to be the most important, I would say. So one thing I do know is that it mentioned that both of them were fairly young, and that when people die, there has to be a proximate cause, right? Um, Even if you saw a UFO, right, which apparently is one of the reasons given, right, that there's alien activity, there needs to be a mechanical or material effect on the body, right? Unless aliens have technology that we're not aware of, in which case it's a really hard case. But for me, I think we need to kind of think about, okay, how did they die, right? So it says that their hearts stopped. And then one thing I did read, I noted this when I read, is their own notes said swallow capsule, right? So capsule would be a capsule of, well, some sort of chemical or medication, right? Presumably. So for me, that looks like it would be a great proximate cause of death. So capsule to heart stoppage. I will say, just to be fair, there is, I suppose, direct evidence for a UFO. So I'm not a great believer in aliens myself, but I will say that the UFO was witnessed, right? So that would be potentially an alien life form would have killed them, right? So that can't be entirely ruled out. But the thing with that claim is we would need to first establish that aliens exist and interfere with human behaviors. Here's my cat coming over to say hello. All right, buddy, let's get you away from the candles here, okay? Oh, let's go this way.
You and your content on screen together.
Okay, a lot of confusion. So, I'm gonna go with that they died from the ingestion of the capsule. And not to give too much outside information, but I am old enough to remember hearing stories of what we call the Heaven's Gate suicide, right? Which, if you don't know, was a case, I believe, in Southern California where there was a religious group, perhaps cult would be the appropriate word, where people thought a spacecraft would be flying above them, and they thought that if they committed suicide, that their souls would be let on board. So I don't know the details of that case that well. It was called Heaven's Gate, I believe, but I do remember hearing about it a little bit, so that kind of sticks into my mind here. So just because the UFOs, again, there is evidence for it. Other than that, I don't see any other evidence of anyone else who would have been involved, just because we don't see anyone mentioned. Clearly, these two people were planning on doing something, so the two had a plan, so they were involved, right? It wasn't that something just happened to them, right? So my conclusion is, and this is tricky because it says they had a return ticket, so I actually think this was probably accidental. So I'm gonna go with accidental overdose by UFO enthusiasts. And where I got that is just because the area was already known for having UFOs. So it's possible that these two men went to this location for that purpose. Okay, so I'm sorry for the lights going out. We had the power go out here in Livermore, but that was me completing all the activities for the critical thinking class. Thanks.